And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Tuesday, April 24th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain, and many of the stories we read here you can find at IndianCountryNews.com. And here are some of the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Drug crimes in eastern Montana are up 172%. Assaults in Dickinson, North Dakota have climbed 300%. And once sleepily Plentywood, Montana, there have been 3 gun crimes in the past few months. A prospect previously unheard of in the tiny community tucked against this Canadian border. Booming oil production has brought tens of thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars in new revenues to a wide expanse of the Northern Plains. But it has also brought more crime, forcing law enforcement from the U.S. and Canada to deal with spiking offenses from drug trafficking and gun crimes to prostitution. The rural region is emerging as one of the top oil-producing areas of North America. Officials say up to 30,000 more workers could descend on the pecan oil fields of Montana, North Dakota, and Saskatchewan, and several reservations in those regions in the next few years. Already disputes over the eviction of American Indians from local trailer parks in Montana by landlords who can demand higher rents from oil workers has taken place. The recent kidnapping and brutal murder of Montana teacher Sherry Arnold has underscored the changes brought on by the rapid pace of drilling. 2 men are in custody, but the case has left many residents shaken and led to a huge rise in applications to carry concealed weapons in Montana and North Dakota. Everyone needs their weapon of their choice now. The Native American Culture and Educational Authority says $40 million has been raised in private funds to support the completion of the American Indian Cultural Center and Museum there in Oklahoma. Authority CEO Blake Wade says Bank First confirmed the amount, which officials hope will be matched by a $40 million in state funding. Wade says the money collected from private donors shows there's strong community support for the museum. He says he hopes Governor Mary Fallin and the legislature will supply the additional $40 million needed to complete the project, but some state legislatures have been critical of the museum's total costs, which are estimated at $171 million. The Oklahoma City Council voted to dedicate $9 million to the project if the state approved the additional $40 million. The city donated land for that center. Native Americans, Sierra Club activists, and others have completed a 3-day 50-mile walk from the Reed Gardner Station coal plant in Moapa to the Las Vegas Federal Courthouse. Moapa Band of Paiute Chairman William Anderson said in a statement this last Sunday that the march was held to highlight air pollution, a major concern for tribal members on their reservation. Reed Gardner borders the reservation and is southern Nevada's last coal-burning power plant. Tribal members says its pollutants worsen asthma, sinus problems, ear infections, and heart disease. The Sierra Club says it also robs tribal members of their traditional lifestyle by forcing them indoors. A rally at the courthouse on Earth Day on April 22nd included a traditional tribal victory dance and singing. The first criminal charges in the 2010 BP golf spill were filed on Tuesday, April 24th against a former BP engineer accused of intentionally deleting hundreds of text messages about the size of the spill. Of course, Tuesday, April 24th is 2 days after the 2-year anniversary of Earth Day and the beginning of that spill. It's clear from the court records unsealed with the case that the Justice Department's criminal investigation of the massive BP blowout includes this aspect. Did BP or its employees intentionally understate the amount of oil flowing from the well? Kurt Mix, 50, was arrested on 2 charges of obstruction of justice and then released on $100,000 bail after a federal court appearance recently in Houston, Texas. Mix is accused of deleting text messages on 2 occasions after being repeatedly informed of his obligation to maintain those records. Most of those messages were later retrieved, according to the Justice Department. Lawsuits have been filed seeking financial compensation from BP, and the oil giant has reached a tentative $7.8 billion settlement with thousands of individuals and businesses along the Gulf Coast, including some of those tribal and fishing communities of indigenous people. An upstate New York historical site that was heavily damaged during last year's flooding from Tropical Storm Irene is getting nearly $100,000 in state grants for repairs. When the Schoharie Creek overflowed its banks in late August, the water scoured away the parking lot and caused other damage to the Schoharie Crossing State Historic Site in the hamlet of Fort Hunter, 35 miles northwest of Albany, New York. That revealed remnants of the British colonial fort built 300 years earlier to protect the local Mohawk community. Archaeologists spent several months excavating the exposed foundations and discovered numerous colonial artifacts. Officials from the State Canal and Park System says that $95,000 will go toward repairing the property. The fort was used during the French and Indian War and the American Revolution. The Lebanon, Oregon School Board is not letting go of the Warrior logo without a fight. The Albany Democratic Herald reports the school board voted 4-1 in favor of a resolution challenging the authority of the State Board of Education to propose a rule banning the use of American Indian mascots in public schools. The State Board is expected to vote in May on the rule requiring 15 high schools to retire their mascots by July of 2017. The State Department of Education spokeswoman says the board has legal authority and its lawyer vetted the procedure. If approved, schools such as the Lebanon High School identified as the Warriors would have to change only their mascots, not their nicknames. Other schools, such as those called Indians, would have to change both. State and tribal government officials are seeking information about a spill that caused a small die-off of young salmon on the Nooksack River in Washington State. The Lumi Natural Resources Department are reporting dead Chinook salmon smolts and more than 100 dead pink and shum salmon found in a smolt trap in Hovender Park in Ferndale. The Bellingham Herald reports the dead fish were found last week, several hours after traps had been checked and everything else was found to be in fine shape earlier in the day. Officials believe the die-off may have been caused by a spill or the dumping of chemicals into the river. Tests found a higher acidity level in the water, and scientists observed the scent of juniper or an evergreen chemical cleaner nearby. Water samples and fish carcasses have been sent for laboratory analysis. And that's going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. Thanks for joining with us, and y'all come back soon. Miigwech.